Monster Rancher, called Monster Farm in Japan, is a monster battler and training sim originally released by Tecmo in 1997 on the PlayStation 1, that is getting a remaster on modern platforms, and has spawned several sequels and even an anime spin-off. While we will get to these successors, we first need to take a look at the original game that started it all. At first, you would likely recognize some parallels between Monster Rancher and the more well-known franchise Pokemon, since a core mechanic is the gathering of monsters and ultimately battling them against other monsters, but the way you reach this point makes the two franchises drastically different. Since Monster Rancher takes a much more life sim approach to reaching that point, this ultimately makes the two games appeal to somewhat different audiences, especially since Monster Rancher makes you far more involved in the creation, training, breeding, and yes, even death of your creatures, since age is a concern in this world. Starting out in your journey in Monster Rancher, you play a newly accredited rancher, and even get yourself an assistant to advise you along the way, but unlike Pokemon, you don't get a gift from the professor, but instead you have to spawn your starting monster using one of two options. The easiest being going to the market and selecting from the predetermined basic monsters. But the more interesting, and let's be honest, gimmicky option is actually generating your monster by inserting a disc into your PlayStation. What you get from inserting a Led Zeppelin CD will be different than what you get by inserting a Marvel vs. Street Fighter disc, just for an example. This method has changed in the re-releases, with the current DX releases using a music library system instead of a CD system, so you don't have to be hoping you have a CD drive for this. But either way you choose to get your monster, you now have a creature on your hands that has strengths and weaknesses and even a personality that changes how well they perform different tasks. And if you wanted to, you could even generate two monsters early on, merge them together, and have an equally as fresh and weak monster with the amalgamation of the abilities of their weak parents. Though you will likely want to save that merging for a little bit later after you've allowed these monsters to work, train, fight, and yes, even age, since as they approach their sunset years, all they've learned can be passed on, with a pinch of RNG and item usage kind of involved in the creating of the offspring. This will also give you the opportunity to get some of the hybrid type monsters that the series is known for. Getting into the meat and potatoes of the game, we actually get to the ranching part, where you will be spending pretty much most of your time, and where you will have to literally choose between meat and potatoes to feed your monster for the month. This basically serves as an upkeep tax for your ranch to motivate you to keep earning money. And whether you choose to feed your monster potatoes, fish, or the more expensive air quote meat, changes the multiple factors on them, ranging from their mood and stress to their actual physical shape. In addition to this monthly feeding, you can also feed the monsters various items from the shop for various effects, though these special items usually come with a pro and a con, so looking up what they do before using them is definitely advised. In terms of what you do in the ranch, outside of shoving food down your poor monster's face, you actually do have a few options. First, you can send them to work to earn their keep, as well as provide some training of various stats, with some types of work providing minor stats with only minor fatigue, while others provide multiple buffs and debuffs at a slightly higher fatigue, with the money earned scaling, of course, with this amount of fatigue. Next, you have training, where you actually spend money to send the monster out to train and boost their stats over an extended period of time, though during that time you cannot do anything else with them, such as feeding items, working, resting, or battling, as they're stuck at the training location working on becoming better fighters for your future arena battles. On the subject of those arena battles, at specific times of the month, that vary depending on your rank and the month, you can spend that week to engage in both smaller tournaments as well as the regular official tournaments. The smaller tournaments are great ways to test the strength of your monster, earn fame, and even get a good deal of money if you win, whereas the official tournaments, always at the end of their given month, have the function of allowing you to basically get your monster to earn better fighting brackets. It is worth noting that fighting is not mandatory, but it is a central part of the gameplay and how you actually get access to more stuff, and it is something you'll generally want to work towards, basically being able to do regularly with a few of your monsters. And the last thing you can spend your weeks on is resting, since you can probably tell by the mention of fatigue earlier, you do need to rest up to be able to perform optimally. It's generally a bad idea to have your monster push through tasks while exhausted, since it can result in failure, among other issues, and if you fail a task, you get nothing from it. Now let's assume you've got your monster trained, and it's still fairly young, so you take it into the arena since it's the other major element of the game outside of the ranching. In the arena, whether it's an official tournament or a small tournament, you engage in a best of battle against other monsters of the given tier. You can do this automatically and let the AI decide the best way to fight with your monster, which if your monster is strong enough is usually the most relaxing way to do it. Or you can go into manual control mode and command your monster in real time. Either method you choose follows the same rules, and thankfully for some pairings does include a timer as well to keep matches from dragging on too long. When doing this real-time battle, there's a lot of factors that come into play, even though the majority of your inputs are simply telling your monster where to move and then selecting and using skills depending on your range from the enemy. Some of the factors that can impact it greatly are positioning as mentioned, which determines skill usage, but also an encroachment factor that opens up the roar command, as well as various stats that you've helped gain your monster through work, food, training, etc. to basically determine its ability to deal and mitigate damage, though a massive factor that can make manual control go from simple to simply frustrating is loyalty. Simply put, as you train your monster, they gain or lose a loyalty stat. This stat is essential to determining how fluid your battles will go, since the lower loyalty, your monster will be far more prone to suffering from a confusion status, where your inputs don't matter and the opposing monster will be free to literally smash your monster into the ground for a decent stretch of time with no repercussions, whether you're controlling them or not. After doing a number of these battles and tournaments and training your monster while earning a trait called Fame, you'll also encounter situations where the opposing monster is afraid and will forfeit, giving you a free win and extra money, which is never a bad thing. It is worth noting, at least from the initial testing for the first impression, you cannot have an entire tournament forfeit, as it seems there will always be at least one willing to fight. Overall, I find this game interesting and fun, though I feel many of its successors did it better, both in franchise and even outside the franchise. For example, like Dragon Seeds, that released about a year after this, did it a little bit better. It definitely shows the initial growing pains of making a game that modifies and defines a chunk of the subgenre, but as long as you go into it with that in mind, it can be an overall positive experience worth trying. Though with retro gaming prices going through a bubble at the release of this video, I would wait until it bursts to pick this one up, or instead go for the remaster, since you can get both Monster Rancher 1 and 2 in the DX pack for significantly less than buying one of the original discs for either game.